Russell Gahagan here for Russell's Fishing Tech, coming back at you with another video. Last video we talked about coho flies. I talked about sizes, colors, when to use which ones for particular times of year. I wanted to kind of back that up with Dodgers. Obviously there's a few different types of Dodgers, makes, models, sizes. And particularly I fish two styles and sizes primarily, but there are a few other ones out there that I do want to mention that I think have their times and places. But Dodgers and flies for cohos are still known as kind of the predominant thing that most anglers will use spring and even into early summer coho fishing. You can use thin fins like I mentioned before in the very early part of the spring. Spoons definitely catch plenty of cohos starting right out the bat out of winter and running all the way through the summertime. But over the course of the entire season, Dodgers and flies are probably the #1 go-to for coho fishing. So to start off, as I kind of mentioned in my last video, I really like thin fins and mini spoons that particularly right at ice out. So late February, early March already, if we're getting out of Lake Michigan and able to chase after some of those cohos on the south end of the lake, I prefer those thin fins or mini spoons. But as we get into spring a little bit, at April-May time frame, I start to transition to the old faithful size of what a lot of guys reference the Coho Dodger. Lure Jensen still makes a fire red one. He used to make an orange color. There's some other brands out there that make that Coho size Dodger, including us at Salmon Candy. This would be what's referred to as the Coho size. And to me, this is the go-to right out of the gate for April / into May fishing. I like these a lot with the peanut flies in particular, and I like them in a 12-inch to 15-inch lead. So from the Dodger to the peanut fly, I prefer sort of a 12 to 15-inch lead. This is that, like I said, that old faithful size known as the Coho. I believe it's about 6 inches long. We make these in, I believe it's 6 or 7 colors. We got the Steely Candy. We got Jaeger Bomb. We've got Wonder Bread. We've got Lynx UV. We've got the Reverse Coho Crusher. And then we've got the Coho Crusher. We've also got the Fire Dots. So we've got a variety of colors from white to chartreuse to orange, all of which can have their particular days. I probably prefer the white and the chartreuse in low light or real dirty water conditions. And then the orange is kind of the old faithful, more of the standby color pattern, I would say, for cohos. But this is my go-to Dodger for that April into May time frame. Once those cohos start to get up towards where I fish on a Sheboygan, even into Fort Washington, around that middle to May to end of May time frame, that's when I really feel like this second size really comes into play. And that size, we call it a double wide. It's also known as a stubby Dodger. It's just a bigger profile Dodger, like this one right here. This would be a double wide, and here would be the same color in a double O. So you can kind of see the profile difference. It's obviously about twice as wide, and I think it's really the same height. I think it's also about 6 inches. It's just a much bigger profile. For me, this seems to work better a little bit later in the year, and late May on through June and July if you're going to fish for cohos. And I think it's really got to do with two things. Number one, as that warmer water warms up and those fish move up the shoreline of the lake, I feel like we start to fish them a little deeper down in the water column, and I've talked a lot over the years about how I like bigger profiled stuff as you go further down in the water column. The other thing is, when we see cohos in March, April, down on the south end of the lake, a lot of them are 2, 3, 4 pounds at the biggest. They're very smaller fish, and the smaller type stuff, the small peanut flies, the Coho Dodgers seem to really work well. As they get up towards Milwaukee, Port Washington, and on the other side of the lake, as they work their way further north and as the season progresses a little bit, they've been putting the feed bag on now for several months, and they grow in size very quickly. Coho, of all the 5 salmon and trout species, grow in size the fastest. And I think as they get a little bit bigger, the presentation can also allow for a little bit bigger. So this double wide type Dodger, in my personal opinion, is my preference for the little bit later parts of the year, that May, June, July time frame. Now, the other couple ones I wanted to mention that I think really have their days, the Baby Spin Doctor, which I didn't grab a sample of these two, I do apologize, but they're easy to look up on the internet. The Baby Spin Doctor, it's a 6-inch spin doctor. I've talked about that for years. It has its days and it has its own kind of profile and action. There's definitely times where I've ran a Baby Spin Doctor mixed in with my Dodger spread, and it's the hottest rod. Usually for me with the Spin Doctors, they're either hot or cold. There's no real in between for me. They're either the hottest rod I got if I put one on a diver, generally speaking, or I don't catch anything at all on. The other one is what I call the Bent Dodger, which really I think there's two manufacturers for sure that make them. Alderton is a local one here in Wisconsin. They make the Bent Dodgers. The other one is Dreamweaver. They make, I think they call it their Z Dodger, which is bent. So it's a profile of like a double O Dodger, but basically has a bend on each end to just give it a unique action. Has a much different action than the standard double O or the double wide Dodger, and a little bit different look to it. Kind of like the Spin Doctor. For me, it's more of an all or nothing thing. It really, really works well when the conditions work well, or when the conditions are set up for it. And I find that it seems to work well when the cohos are ultra aggressive. If it's just one of those bites where they're super aggressive, they're really feeding, I find that those two particularly work. One of the big questions I get asked a lot is, what length of leader behind that double wide Dodger? I prefer 15 inches, but I think you can run this like 15 to 18 inches, anywhere in between. I really like that 15-inch mark on this. This is an aggressive sort of pattern as well, and that 15-inch deal will be an aggressive setup behind it. Our slider fly works very well on this. The peanut fly also works very well on this. That just has a lot to do with, again, size and what they're looking for at that particular time frame. Last but not least, what rods can you run these on? You can really run any of the Dodgers on any kind of rod. There isn't like a spot where it's like, okay, don't run this. I would say that I prefer the double wide on downriggers and divers, are probably my two favorite spots to run this. And then I really probably prefer the double O's either on a downrigger or on planer bullets. If I'm going to run short lead cores or inline sinkers for cohos, I probably would prefer the double O's. If I'm going to run, these double wides, I generally like them on a rigger or a diver. So just wanted to go over the different types and different sizes of profiles, for that matter, of Dodgers out there for early season coho fishing. Weather's finally starting to turn. It looks like next week we're going to finally hit some 50s and 60s here in Wisconsin and Michigan. That really should get Lake Michigan fired up, should get some movement going up the shoreline of some of these cohos. I hope that you guys can get out. And if you're looking to purchase any of these Dodgers or some of those flies that I talked about in my last video, don't be afraid to get on their website, salmoncandyfishing.com. And also don't be afraid to look at our dealers. I've posted that, and I'm going to have some videos on my Russell's Fishing Tech Facebook page coming, showing you some of the dealers and their assortments that they got at the different places. So good luck and good fishing.